So it's on, so we,
Are we good to go? All right, great. Thank you, good evening. Welcome to the November 20th, 2024 Finance Board meeting. I'll call the meeting to order at 6 o'clock PM. First item on our agenda is the approval of the minutes from the October 9th, 2024 meeting. Has everyone had a chance to review those?
I have, I'll make a motion to approve, and they look to be in line.
Okay,
Second that.
second. Is there any other discussion? All in favor? 4 with 1 abstention. The next item on the agenda is the fiscal year 2025 budget review. I provided copies of both revenue and expenditures that we received from Ellen. Ellen, I don't know if you want to go through anything specific?
Are we talking about October? I'm sorry, I was reading something.
Yes.
Okay. No, there's nothing specific. Couple accounts we're keeping our eye on, but only because they're not over or anything. We just had to, buy an AC unit, which is a little early in the year, so we kind of want to keep an eye on that repairs and maintenance account, but so far, so good. Business as usual.
Great. Did anyone have any questions when reviewing the information?
what about there's been a lot of coverage of the fires and the overtime related to, has that affected us?
So because we're call, we don't really have a ton of overtime. It will kind of depend on what happens the rest of the year. If we,
But up until now, through the,
we're not over budget
Wild.
there so far, but if we don't get rain and we continue to have fires, it might become an issue.
right, okay, thank you.
I mean, towns like Middleton and North Andover, they're over budget. Is there, if they declare emergency, they're allowed to go break, because, they have a town, and it's a fixed budget. So what happens then?
I do know that there are allowances given the certain circumstances, but I'm not
Yeah.
100% sure on what those allowances
Yeah.
are.
Well, I know those two towns declared an emergency.
I did speak with the fire chief today. There was a small brush fire that we had,
Yeah.
and he had mentioned that, it is straining resources here in Groveland as well. We send our tanker
Yeah.
to a lot of the mutual aid that's called in, and we do have on-call
Yeah.
firefighters who do respond to some of those brush fire incidents. But like Ellen says, it hasn't necessarily hit us too hard on the budget at this point in time, but we are sending resources to help our neighboring communities through our mutual aid agreements.
Everyone all set? Okay.
Yeah.
The next item on the agenda, this is just a reminder that next Tuesday, November 26th, 2024, is the State of the School District meeting. It will be held at the Pentucket Regional Middle High School. I believe everyone received an invitation directly from Rebecca, so if you can respond about your attendance to that. Although we are invited, we won't be participating in any conversation or voting at that meeting, so there is an agenda posted, should quorum of the Finance Board be in attendance, but it's clear that we won't be making any votes at that meeting. The second half of that meeting is a discussion between the Tri-Town and the school district on the regional agreement. Rebecca, I don't know if you had any updates based on conversations that have been held recently.
I do, I just have a few. I received the final review draft that will be discussed at the meeting on the 26th, and I will be forwarding that over to you, Madam Chair, to distribute to the board. It's not necessarily anything that the board hasn't seen before. We did talk about this at length in the beginning. I know a former board member was selected to sit on that working group that we had originally established prior to override discussion, so there was some back and forth between the different communities in regards to some of the proposed changes. So just highlighting a few so that the board and for the record is aware, there was still the conversation regarding the location of school and whether or not the language should be changed to there shall be not less than one elementary school in each member town to there may be one or more elementary school in each member town. So that's still language that is undecided at this point in time. It does appear that Groveland, at least the select board, and I believe the finance board had made suggestions that they would like to see that language remain. But West Newbury has stated that they might like to see that change, maybe not now, but sometime in the future. So it is still a topic of discussion. The other amendments were under the budget section. Some of it was more so cleaning up the language. Both of the bullet points were debt service, capital costs, and operating costs. But due to the Select Board Chair Castronellis's recommendation, she also wanted to add stabilization cost into that. So we separated it out into 4 categories. So now you'll have your debt service, your capital cost, your operating cost, and your stabilization cost. And that was something that she just wanted to see a little bit more because there was conversations about their excess and deficiency account and whether or not they were following through with their policy and moving monies from that account into their stabilization account. So it was just something as a matter of transparency, and the communities agreed that that might be something that they'd like to see. Again, still something up for discussion, but something that was changed. The following language underneath that was all pretty much standard. Some of the errors we had 0.4 decimal points and that was being rounded to 0.5, so just choosing which decimal point we were going to use and what the business manager would like to use, because it really doesn't matter, we just want consistency. Then also updating the capital cost from $10,000 to $20,000. All of the community bylaws had $20,000, so it made sense to update the regional agreement to be $20,000, so that's still in there. Some other minor items like making sure that the capital improvement plan is submitted in October so that we can finalize our capital improvement plan. And then the last larger of the changes surrounds the regional school committee. So I just want to get down to this section. But there was a provision within the original agreement that allowed for a regional finance advisory committee. And so there was a lot of cut and paste, I guess, from the 2019 amendment. So some of the things didn't necessarily line up. So there were some adjustments made to that language. Nothing really changed per se, other than just ensuring that we do have 2 meetings with the school committee during the budget process, which would be November at the State of the District, as well as in March prior to the vote on the proposed budget. So we just ensure that language is in there. And then we still allow the regional advisory committee to meet if in fact the towns felt as though they needed to do so. So it still gives us the ability to convene on that level if there's any issues with the regional agreement or the way that we're managing from a tri-towns perspective. So they were pretty minor in nature. There wasn't anything else that was really kind of adversarial with the communities other than that one item being the location of the schools. And then I do know that the select board had made 2 changes in regards to language and wanting to see the ratio of the school students to teachers and how many teachers were teaching, how many classes they were teaching. We did talk to the business manager, and that wasn't something that was feasible at this point in time. They said they would open it up to discussion, but I think the consensus has been that this has been something that we've been needing to update for quite some time and have not been able to update. So we should at least get the matters that we can all agree on updated, and then we can highlight those other areas and address them as needed. So I will be bringing this before the select board on their meeting on the 25th to just update them, specifically provide the document, and then go over the fact that those 2 were removed due to those conversations that were had. So I will forward this over to you, Madam Chair, and you can distribute to the board. And if anybody has any questions in the interim or prior to the meeting, please feel free to reach out to me, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Great. Thank you, Rebecca. Does anyone have any questions about that right now? Great. Rebecca, I'm going to leave it in your court. The next thing on the agenda is the fiscal year 2026 budget update.
So I don't have too much to update the board on. I did provide the budget goals that we provide to the departments every year when we ask them to submit their budget. This will be before the select board at their meeting on the 25th. and usually the language does not change. I know we had a discussion about this last year, and people were a little confused as to why we had it on the agenda, but I did want to make sure that you all knew of the goals, and that if there were any recommended changes or anything that you'd want to see, that we address them. And then also to let you know that the budget book shall be going out on the week, or next week, hopefully before the holiday. We will have the same type of scheduling that we've had year after year, which will be that they need to submit their budgets by December 31st of the year, and then we will assemble the budget book. We will distribute the budget book to the finance board, and then we have a draft schedule that the chair had provided to the board a few meetings ago. So those will be sent out to the departments as well, so that they can put those onto their calendars, and if there's any scheduling conflicts or anything, I'm sure that we can communicate with them and make arrangements. But otherwise, we will also try and do what we did last year, which is to invite the departments to meet with both Ellen and I prior to the submittal of their budget, so that we can go over things in a little bit more detail, kind of look at the numbers on the back end and ask any questions that we think might be relevant, or identify any trends that we're seeing, and have those conversations beforehand.
Great. And if anyone does have scheduling conflicts, they can obviously definitely reach out, and we can definitely accommodate any changes. We just went off of kind of what we had as a plan from last year. Don't mess with what isn't broken, so.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yep. All right, the next item on the agenda is an update on the capital improvement plan.
So for the capital improvement plan, we're still looking to finalize the document, but I did make an update to the select board and wanted to bring it to the finance board's attention. We did have a few requests that came in this fiscal year. There was nothing major that really presented itself. There was a standard request that we received from the police department in regards to the new cruiser. We also had another request come in from the highway department in regards to the asphalt hot box, which it helps with filling the potholes and things in real time. And then we had some repeat requests that came through, those being the library shelving replacement. So they're looking, and as we propose to phase that project, looking for a second allocation to come forward. And then from the highway department, we have the track loader, which was a request that came in originally. They're looking for that for this fiscal year. And then we also had an opportunity to meet with Jonathan Seymour over at Pawtucket Regional School District to go over whether or not there were any capital needs for the Bagnell Elementary School. So looking at the list that they had and the priorities that they had, we had identified 3 projects, one of which is the library carpet removal and tile, and that was for $16,000. And as part of that project, there's also an opportunity to partner with the PTO, because they're looking to make some upgrades as well. So it would be a great opportunity for us to provide some assistance in that effort. The next would be room 33 and 31 in the computer lab carpet removal and tile, and that was for $19,700. And then the last one was for asbestos abatement. We've been kind of tackling that year by year and making an allocation, so this would take care of another 2 classrooms that are looking for remediation. So the total for Bagnell would be $67,700. The total for the library would be $10,230, and the total for the police would be $68,960. So the one I did not mention, and is still kind of in flux, and I mentioned this at the select board meeting, is that we have an opportunity to open the contract that we currently have for our trash and recycling and move to automated, which would result in realized savings for the town. When we start to think about going out to bid for our next contract, it's really important to note that no one's doing manual collection anymore. It is moving in the direction of automated, and we're not going to get any decreases in price if we continue to do manual collection. So it kind of came to a conversation as to what are we going to do, because we don't have the carts. And if you put the carts as part of the financing plan with the contract, it can be quite costly, because obviously they're going to drive up the cost. So working with the Trash and Recycling Committee, we had talked about different options and the potential of opening up the contract and having some of that savings move from the automated collection. We could use that towards the purchase of the cart with an additional allocation of free cash, which would allow us to have the carts so that we would, 1, the next fiscal year, see the realized savings, since we've already made the purchase and the investment. And then two, when we do go out to bid, we already own the carts. So we're not leasing the carts, we're not financing the carts, we already own the carts. So that is something that is going to be discussed with the select board as well. The Trash and Recycling Committee have made a recommendation on the size of the carts that they would like the town to move forward with, as well as making a recommendation that the select board open up the contract to allow for negotiations to move forward with automated. So that's going to,
So automated is just, the standard barrels, and they could lift them like all
That's
the
right.
other cities and towns around us. I got
that's
it.
correct.
And the
So-
carts or the barrels?
Yeah.
Yes, correct.
Yeah.
And if then board members would like to see them, we do have them in the back meeting room right now, and we have them labeled for the 35-gallon, the 64-gallon, and the 96-gallon. So again, that would ultimately be the responsibility of the select board to decide in which direction we move forward, but the Trash and Recycling Committee will be making a recommendation on their meeting on the 25th. So if we were to move forward, there would be an additional capital cost because it does have a life expectancy beyond 10 years for the carts, and they also obviously will exceed the capital threshold. So there is a placeholder there if we wanted to move forward with that.
How many carts would it be?
So we would
Roughly.
need to, it depends on how we move forward, but for the parcel count, we're looking at 2,221.
Well, pretty much from my observation is, I've seen 4 or 5 barrels from one house stacked up like, so this is gonna be a change. The people will adjust to it.
One of the reasons why the Trash and Recycling Committee wanted to move forward with trying to do the automated sooner rather than later is that enforcement has obviously been a problem. The town had moved to a 2-barrel limit and an overflow program back in 2022, and we're not necessarily seeing it enforced, and trying to get people from the waste management company to abide by that has been very challenging. So moving to an automated system will help with that enforcement because they don't want to get out of the truck. So that's where their saving is because they have to pay for workers' compensation and a lot of other fees that go along with having the worker get out of the truck, lift up the bag, throw it in it. So by having them sit there, it will speed up the time that they're able to finish their route.
I mean, one guy does it now, they'll still have one guy.
Correct.
So how will it speed it up a couple of hours a day?
But that could be significant in the long run. And if you're only picking up 1 or 2 barrels.
No, I understand that.
Instead of the 5 that might be left on the side right now, that's also reducing your tonnage, and if your tonnage is going down, then your cost is going down. So
Yeah.
overall, it will help with the tonnage, the aesthetics, it will provide better sanitary options because you'll have the lids, it will be heavy-duty barrels.
Right.
There's a lot of other trade-offs that come into it as well.
You would think that one person also, I mean, is the limit of what he does based on the hours in the day or the fatigue factor when you're getting in and out, I mean, how much, you might be able to complete a route.
He lifts my barrels, because I got one that's,
Yeah,
and then.
can
but
you imagine?
It's a lot of work.
Yeah,
But remember, they do trash collection 5 days a week.
Yeah, right.
We're not that big in the geographical size.
Oh,
So if that one person is not doing a 1-day, we're taking care of your entire community. Some communities only have trash and recycling pickup 1 or 2 days a week. We have it 5 days a week.
Yeah. I know.
Does that eliminate the ability to have those overflow bags, the paper?
So right now, the Trash and Recycling Committee is exploring furthering the pay-as-you-throw program that we currently have with the overflow bags, but nothing's been decided, and it wouldn't necessarily change unless the select board wanted to make a change. I think that based upon the conversations with the Trash and Recycling Committee and the fact that we received that MAC coordinator technical assistance, they do want to see the town still have a pay-as-you-throw type program. And with their recommendation to only allow for a 35-gallon trash cart, I do believe that that would be the only way to eliminate a lot of concerns that some certain family members would have with being able to dispose of their trash properly.
and then they'd be getting, but that wouldn't be part of the automatic.
That's correct. And so that drives up the cost as well, which was something that we had conversations about because we could potentially open up the contract, but there could be a cost to pick up the overflow bags. If that's the case, then where's the savings? So now you have to increase the price of the bag to offset the cost of the contract. So it is kind of a strategy, I guess, to try and figure out what's the best way to go about it.
Have they gone away from the pay-as-you-throw model, aside from the overflow? Like the first barrel's gonna be covered?
That's kind of the conversation right now, is whether or not they would want to move forward, but it sounds like they would, and if they move forward with the 35-gallon, I would strongly encourage them to have an overflow option, because I know, and I told them myself, as a family of 5, a 35-gallon isn't gonna cut it, and it's not because I'm being, wasteful, it's just because I have a family of 5. So it is important to make sure people have an option to throw away trash, otherwise you're gonna get into issues where you're storing trash in your garage, and you're gonna have to pay more for an extra barrel for the entire year. So, families will have to make those options, and to not have an option to buy bags for $10 and instead lease another barrel for about $175, I'll take the $10.
Let's see, I'll buy the other barrel for $175.
No, everybody's gonna start buying trash compactors again. It's like
Right.
pretty stylish.
Is recycling still gonna be unlimited?
Recycling, their recommendation is to do 96, and if they do a 96 barrel, then we'll probably try and ask the contractor to allow for biweekly recycling pickup, which could reduce the cost of the contract as well.
But there'll be 2 barrels per
Household,
household
There'll only
with
be,
rubbish,
yes,
one recycle,
and then, one
trash.
recycle.
Yep.
Oh, okay, so why not a bigger barrel, like I have a 65?
well, that was the conversation, what do they want to put forward? Do you want to do what other communities do, which is a 64 trash, a 64 recycling, or 64 trash and a 96 recycling, or a 35 trash and a 64? So there are different options, and then there's options for, older adults who might not want a 64, they could get the 35, but the Trash and Recycling Committee felt as though in efforts to reduce tonnage and in efforts to be environmentally thoughtful, a 35 would encourage people to think about what their waste habits are and recycle more.
But then if we recycle more, now you're gonna need the larger trash barrel, especially if you're only coming.
The recycle is bigger, but not the trash.
Right, but I'm just saying, like, right now, it's unlimited recycling. So what we're proposing is 1 barrel potentially every other week.
And it's not, and it's unlimited in the sense that, there's no, well, yes, you're correct.
So if you're saying it's 1 recycling barrel and this is what we give you, and then potentially we're coming every other week, but you're getting a smaller trash barrel, there's a ripple effect there as well. So,
But would someone be allowed to purchase a barrel?
Yes, they
Yeah.
would.
Because I know they do that in West Newbury.
Yep, and they also do that now in Boxford as well. They have a 64 and a 64, and if you need an extra, you can purchase an extra for the year,
So
like we
it's
said, like
be
at
like,
$175
If
a
you
year.
wanted to have more trash, it's a supplement that you have to pay annually.
So just something I wanted to bring up to the board to let them know, it obviously has a financial impact, whether or not it comes from the capital plan or whether or not we're talking about the budget line allocation.
So what sort of an investment would the carts be?
It's about a $250,000 investment in total. And if they do move forward with the 35-gallon and they continue to have the pay-as-you-throw and expand the pay-as-you-throw, there is a grant program that Mass DEP offers that will allow you about $30 a cart that we can try and get as well. And that would only be for the trash, not the recycling.
That's interesting. You would think the grants would support the recycling.
More so the reduction of waste and from the trash side of things has been the focus, at least that we've seen from the MAC coordinator.
and you said 2,221 parcels.
Correct.
That doesn't account for multifamily?
So it does, because if we look at the multifamily parcels that we have, and those parcel counts include your apartments, and they include your condos, and they include, Whitestone Village and things of that nature where we don't provide trash, so the offset in the number makes up for the multifamilies that we have in town.
Okay. Thank you for that update.
And, am I still on? And thank the Trash and Recycling Committee for all of that work. I know it's been a large undertaking, and it's just such an important part of our budget.
All right, the next item on the agenda, the community preservation project updates. I'll open it to Rebecca and Adam as the chair of the CPC to give those updates.
I don't know if you want to start it off, and I can go through the list if that would be easier.
Yeah, that's fine. Just, so we received what our state match was gonna be, for last year. It came in at 37.58%, $186,512 was the match. And then during our meeting last week, we closed out a ton of abandoned accounts, I guess I'll call it for lack of a better term, and returned a little over $620,000 to the categories to be used for something else.
Congratulations on your chairmanship.
Thank you.
So just to provide a little bit more detail on some of those accounts, so essentially, due to the committee restructuring and taking a little bit of a closer look at the accounts that we had, it allowed us to take a little bit of a closer look internally on what we had for projects, and we found that some of the projects had an expiration date assigned to the project as part of the allocation that was made at town meeting. We conferred with town council upon the request of the Community Preservation Committee, and it was found that you cannot expend those funds unless you receive an extension from town meeting because it had an expiration date. Any projects that don't have an expiration date, you're fine to use, and in the future, if we wanted to add an expiration date, we could allow the CPC as a committee to extend that without having to go and wait until April to have that extended. So something to take into consideration. So the committee went through and they had closed a couple of those projects that had expired back in 2021, 2017, 2019, and they returned those funds, and then they left a couple open because I believe there might be some that want to extend.
There's interest in extending a couple of them.
So there was, I believe the ones they were looking to close is the conservation restriction. I'm not sure, that was for the 23,198, the Johnson Pond weed removal. And then there was the 733 Salem Street acquisition and the installing a historic management system at the library. And I believe we left the preservation of the Vito Hand Tub Museum, the window control and parking lot improvements at Washington Hall, and the open space and recreation trails. And then for the other projects that we have, we asked to close, which was the UTV for the community trail. We were unsuccessful with the grant that we had sought, and that was the match. We were successful in getting an earmark, so thank you, Senator Tarr and Representative Ramos, for doing that. So we are moving forward with the purchase of that, but since we didn't get the grant, we need to return the money. So we wanted to close that account. As I had mentioned at the last meeting, the Pine Splash Pad had not come to fruition as we had hoped, so that would be closing. We did provide the plans to the Recreation Committee, so if they do want to move forward with that and there is interest in that, they do have all the accurate information and can put forward an application this year, or they can put forward an application in the future. The VZ Park feasibility study had been completed, and we're returning $500 back to the account. The Groveland Housing Authority buy-down program, at the meeting with the select board, I had mentioned that we had come to an agreement with the former director. The director had then since left and they hired a new director. That director is fantastic, but there are a lot of projects going on and there's a specific focus on a lot of different things that are happening in Haverhill as well. So they just don't have the capacity to commit to what they were originally going to do for us for this program, which was more so the affirmative fair marketing plan, lottery, and a lot of things that we can't do internally. So we had about a $8,000 to $10,000 allocation for them to assist with that. They said that they can no longer assist with that. That kind of kills the program. And so we thought that it would be best to close the program, close the project, and then reapply for a different program that would make sense moving forward. And then the fencing at Riverview Cemetery, returning $3,275, mostly because the tree line that you see is right on the property line. So you can't really zigzag the fence right through the property line. And so we would either need to bring the fence in before the trees or take the fence in after the trees, and then we'd have to deal with private property owners. So there just wasn't a clear path forward at this point in time. So it just made sense to return the funds until we have an idea of what we wanted to do moving forward. And then the other projects, like we said, the The Washington Park basketball courts is completed. They look great. The tennis pickleball is just about completed, so that looks great. And then we have outstanding projects being the new Mill Pond Phase 1 cleanup, which I know Selectwoman Castellalis is working on with Mike Dempsey, the Crosstown Recreational Trail, the ADA accessible bathroom, the ADA lift at VZ. We did also, I forgot to mention, close Lucille's Cottage restoration for $752 since that project has been completed, and they also received a mass development grant that allowed them to finish a lot more of their engagement that they were looking to do before they decide whether or not they want to move forward with construction. The Pines Skate Park is still open, Washington Hall paving and hydro seeding, the planting and preserving of historic trees, the cemetery monument preservation, community garden, Washington Hall, being on the National Registry, the Pines shade and seating, the town clerk scanning of documents, the Perry Park design phase, the Pines parking enhancement, and the Shanahan Field parking creation. So you're looking at about approximately $1.9 million of outstanding projects.
Did you say Crosstown Trail?
Mhm.
What is that?
So that was the project that Mike Dempsey put forward that involved the Center Street Greenway and trying to connect the parcels through some of the other open space parcels that we have throughout town. So I just wanted to provide the board an update and then also give Adam an opportunity to talk about the match as we come forward with the upcoming applications. They're due December 31st, 2025. So all of the applications will come before the finance board as well to provide whether or not they would like to see them move forward and put a recommendation on the annual town meeting warrant.
Great, thank you both for that update.
Have you received many applications for?
We had a public hearing in November, and there was 5 or 6 projects that look like they're gonna be coming forward. I know one was to do some more lighting for the other baseball field at the Pines. The 733 Center Street is gonna come back around. I think it needs to have more money to do it, so that's gonna come up again this year. There is some talk of expanding parking at Washington Hall. There is, let me go back to my notes. There's a couple more here.
And I had 2 that I was gonna put forward for a housing repair program for income eligible residents and also to engage in a consultant to help us utilize the funding from our inclusionary zoning bylaw that we have set aside for when you don't provide the affordable unit, you make a payment, and we're not really doing what we should be doing without those monies.
So the other ones we had, trash receptacles on the rail trail, a historic preservation project at 46 Washington Street, which I believe is the old water department. And I think that was it for projects that had come forward. Now, clearly, there's still plenty of time to put something forward, but those are the ones that came and talked to us.
I'm wondering if there's any way to connect with residents or organizations within the community that may not know about community preservation. It seems like the same, you see Washington Hall every year. It seems like, and I understand, once you start an endeavor like that, you also want to see it through. Maybe it is a phased approach in the applicant's mind, but I wonder if there's people that,
That was kind of one of my goals and why I shot for the chairmanship, is to I feel the same, it's between parking lots, Washington Hall, and VZ Park, like, there's the whole rest of the town somewhere that, could use some things, so it's something I want to work on as well, is kind of get the word out there. And
What's with the sewer and water department? What's going on with that?
there was,
Someone submitted something.
yeah, they're gonna submit something, some exterior masonry renovations, a new septic, and a new heating system.
Why wouldn't we just sell it? I'm not for that project, just I'll be transparent about it.
Noted.
I don't understand.
I don't know enough about it to have a
Another
position on it at this
eyesore.
point in time.
We already have another eyesore in Washington Street. Okay. I'll leave that alone until the proper time.
I'll say, I don't drive down Main Street all that often, but every time I do, there are cars parked at the end of that rail trail. And I feel like the rail trail is something that is so celebrated, so used by this community all the time. I see people on it, you know, daily, and it's just been a really, I think, well-used kind of use of those funds. And so, happy to see that.
I have a question that has nothing to do with, how do the funds from the infrastructure bill that the federal Congress passed, how does that money trickle down to a town like us?
It depends. You would have to advocate for those funds. It also goes to state agencies, and then the state agencies also have their programs and their grant programs that you can then apply for those fundings for.
So it's not a direct path, is it?
That's correct.
It isn't like, we got 278 towns and cities, and we'll allocate that money.
It's not an apportionment.
We have
like-
to get middle people in it.
Yeah, it's not
Okay.
like Chapter 90 or
Yeah.
ARPA funds or anything like that. You have to actually compete in a competitive process in order to get those funds.
Okay. I'm disappointed to hear that.
Nothing else on this? The next item on the agenda, actually, we've pretty much come to the end of our agenda. Plan the next meeting. We have it currently scheduled for December 18th at 6 PM, which is our standing third Wednesday of the month. And then the last item is if there are any items not reasonably anticipated at the time of posting. So I'll just run down if anyone has anything.
Good.
Nope. Ruth, Jim,
I'm all set.
all set? I just want to thank Rebecca and everyone who did the Pumpkin Fest
Oh, yeah.
this year. It was very well received, I think, with the location change. I know there's some tweaks to make forward, new location, different challenges, but I know my crew had a good time down there. So, thank you guys very much for all your hard work.
A lot of volunteers and a lot of teams, so we're very excited to hear that.
How did you like the location change?
It was good, but like the chair was saying, there could be some changes. We were a little spread out, trying to get people in, what have you, but it was nice to have a little bit more of that walking freedom. I know the police were very happy about that, since they didn't have to worry about cars, and they did like that the hayride was a little bit set back so that they didn't have to worry about cars and traffic. So there was some pluses and then some minuses, but it was a nice opportunity to try something a little different while keeping the tradition.
Well, that thing has grown to be, it gets better and better. So you guys are doing a good job on that.
Thank you.
All right. If that's it, is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion to adjourn.
All right, I'll second at 6:38 PM. All in favor? Unanimous. Thank you, everyone.
Were you in favor of adjourning?